Excerpt from Telescopes, Eyes on Space, Part 1, by David Dreyer and Brian Roberts. Introduction. For many thousands of years, curious people have gazed into the sky and wondered about the things they saw. Their observations were limited to what they could be seen with the unaided eye. It wasn't until about 400 years ago, with the invention of the telescope, that our knowledge of space took a huge leap forward. Since that time, telescopes have evolved into powerful tools for viewing stars, planets, and other objects in space. History. The invention of the telescope was first made possible through the development of the glass lens. A lens is a curved piece of glass that bends and focuses light. Early eyeglass lenses for reading were developed by Italian glassmakers, but it was the Dutch lens maker Hans Lippershey, whom most historians say was the first to discover how to combine lenses to look at distant objects. He put two lenses in line so that the first lens magnified the light from the second lens. That made distant objects appear much nearer. In 1608, Lippershey built the first crude telescope. He named it the Looker. Other people were also experimenting with lens combinations, but Lippershey was the first to apply for a patent. His invention became an important military tool. The telescope provided a big advantage in warfare. It allowed Dutch armies to watch enemy troop movements from afar. A year after Lippershey invented his telescope, a man in Italy, Galileo Galilei, was hard at work building a telescope for observing objects in space. He greatly improved on the work of Lippershey and other Dutch lens makers. He created a telescope that magnified objects 5 times and eventually 30 times. Galileo used his telescope to observe distant objects in space. Because of this early work, he became known as the father of astronomy. Galileo's observations. Below is a list of the important observations Galileo made with his telescopes: craters and mountains on the moon's surface, 4 of Jupiter's moons, phases of Venus, proving that it orbits the sun, sunspots on the sun's surface, the Milky Way's composition as a galaxy of stars rather than a cloud of cosmic dust as previously thought, Neptune, though he failed to realize that it was a planet. As a professor of astronomy, Galileo was required to teach a model of the solar system. This model placed Earth at the center and had the sun and all the planets revolving around it, but his observations of space convinced him that a different theory might be more accurate. This theory placed the sun at the center of the solar system, with the planets revolving around it. His teaching of this theory upset the Roman Catholic Church. The Church believed that God had designed the universe to revolve around Earth. Galileo's theory displaced humanity from the center of the universe. It made Earth just one of a number of planets revolving around one of many stars. The Church banned Galileo's sun-centered theory and sentenced him to life in prison. But because Galileo was already old, he was allowed to serve his sentence at home, under house arrest, for the rest of his life. Refracting telescope, objective lens, eyepiece lens, light. Refracting telescope. Galileo's telescope was a refracting telescope. In a refracting telescope, light first travels through a piece of curved glass called a lens. The curve of the lens causes the light to bend or refract. Light rays pass through a tube, come together, and pass through a second lens. The second lens refracts the light again before it passes into the eye. The eye sees a large image of the object. Number 1. Read the sentences. In 1608, Lippershey built the first crude telescope. He named it the Looker. Other people were also experimenting with lens combinations, but Lippershey was the first to apply for a patent. What does the word crude most likely mean? A. Original, B. Invention, C. Makeshift, D. Professional. 2. Select the statement that best describes what the inset, Galileo's observations, shows about Galileo? A. His telescopes were superior to any available at the time. B. He was truly the father of astronomy. C. His discoveries provided the foundation for much of what we know today about outer space. D. He didn't understand everything he observed. Number 3. Read the paragraph. Circle the underlined phrase that best helps the reader understand the meaning of the word combine. A. Lens is a curved piece of glass that bends and focuses light. Early eyeglass lenses for reading were developed by Italian glassmakers, but it was the Dutch lens maker Hans Lippershey whom most historians say was the first to discover how to combine lenses to look at distant objects. He put two lenses in line so that the first lens magnified the light from the second lens. That made distant objects appear much nearer. Number 4. Read the sentence. But because Galileo was already old, he was allowed to serve his sentence at home under house arrest for the rest of his life. What does the use of the word allowed tell the reader? A. That Galileo was very old. B. That there was no more room in the prisons. C. That he was too important to go to jail. D. That the authorities were being kind to him. 5. Which of the following best describes the model of the solar system before Galileo's observations? A. The sun was at the center. B. There were only 3 planets. C. The sun revolved around the earth. D. There was no moon.